The 2025 pre-season football is all over. Come and wrap up all the matches from the weekend. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode 10 of 2025 season. Today, we're doing a pre-season wrap-up video. Video/podcast. All pre-season games are officially done. They have just wrapped up as of about 20 minutes ago, maybe less than that at time of recording. Melbourne and Fremantle have just finished. So every team has played all their official pre-season stuff. Opening round kicks off this weekend coming, obviously. So today's episode is pretty much just a rundown of the 9 official pre-season scratch matches, I guess. Just a quick look at them. Well, as always, I mean, you can only read so much into a pre-season game. They don't mean a hell of a lot in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, it's a good hit out, but the actual results don't tend to matter too much. But yeah, take from it what you will. It's good to see some players hitting form. Unfortunately, for a lot of players, there's been quite a few injuries this pre-season, and that has continued through these pre-season matches. So we'll go through them as well in this episode. So we might as well just jump into it. The first game of the official pre-season. If you haven't already, we did a match sim video or podcast a week ago that is out on the channel. It would have been episode 8 of the year. So go back and check that out if you want to find out about the match sim games. Obviously, podcast goes live twice a week, every week. So make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you comment on videos. And also don't forget to hit that subscribe button, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Make sure you follow it along. We're going to be 2 episodes every week all the way through until pretty much the end of the year. Certainly until December, basically. So there's going to be a lot of football content coming your way. Also over on the YouTube channel, we've done pre-season previews for every single club in the AFL. There's 2 left. West Coast and Western Bulldogs will be out over the next 2 days. But every other team's already up, so go check them out. And also, as I said, the last 2 will be coming very soon. Sorry about my camera. It's struggling in the dark conditions of tonight because I'm recording this so late. Anyway, first game off the rack was Geelong Essendon. It was on Tuesday night. Obviously, both of these teams getting ready for an opening round fixture, not against each other, but they both do play in opening round. Geelong 12-11-83, and then Essendon 17-2. Yep, you heard that right. 17-2-104. This is going to be a little bit of a theme across the weekend, or across this whole week of games, is teams kicking poorly and losing, and teams kicking straight and winning. It kind of ruined a lot of games for a lot of teams last season, and I mean, it's already started in pre-season. Never has it been more important to kick straight than right now in the AFL, I think. The way that the competition is so close these days, I feel like it's more important than ever. So that's one of the big takeaways of this game is the Bombers kicked really straight. Their pressure was really good though as well. Right from the start they came in. They had pressure on every Geelong player all the time. Every time they touched the ball, they tackled hard, they pressured hard. It was really good performance. Their midfield was really good, the Bombers. They chucked Nick Martin up forward. He looked good up there. He kicked a couple goals and 22 touches. Obviously did float towards the midfield and even towards the back line at times, but he was starting half forward most of the night. On the other side of the fence, the Cats side, a little bit of a concern in the clearance game, 2 weeks in a row for them. They got smacked by Hawthorn. Granted, Geelong didn't have their best midfield in that day, but they did get smacked in the clearances in that match sim game, and then they followed it up -13 against Dons in clearances here. So not the greatest sign for the Cats there. I mean, clearances aren't the be-all and end-all, but they certainly haven't looked great pre-season-wise in terms of clearances. You could say a lot of things about Geelong's game, I think. One of the concerning things was they weren't really that clean, in all honesty. They fumbled a lot. There was a lot of little handballs that just were only going a couple metres and missing targets and that sort of stuff, which isn't ideal. I'm not sure if that's due to pre-season rustiness or whether it is due to the fact that the Bombers did bring quite a bit of pressure. So it could have gone either way. Look at the best players here. I think most people have gone with the hype of Kako. He kicked 4 goals, 14 touches, and a couple goal assists. He had an absolute fantastic game. Don't expect that every week. He's a small forward, and a young small forward at that, but he's going to be exciting. He's going to bring the pressure. He's hopefully going to kick quite a few goals and be entertaining for the Bombers fans all year long. His mate in Nate Caddy kicked 3 goals. He only had 4 disposals. I don't think he played the first quarter, but played most of the rest of the game. Only had 4 touches, but did kick 3 goals. So made use of his limited chances. Archie Perkins looked good in the forward line again. 2 weeks in a row. He's kicked a couple goals. So a potential that he could be someone that really elevates his game this season. They do need to fill that role, I guess, of a Jake Stringer. Perkins probably not quite the same player as a Stringer in even style. Certainly so far in talent, probably not either. But just someone that can kick goals, but also pinch hit in the midfield at times, and do everything really. So potentially he's someone that could be looking at replacing that Stringer. If they can get 30 goals out of Perkins this year, that would be huge. Elijah, he had 31 disposals and 10 clearances, so he was really good. On the side of the Cats, Brian Myers, 30 disposals and a goal. He's looking ready to go. Back to his best, I reckon. Last year maybe wasn't his best season he's had yet, but maybe 2025 he's ready to go. Jeremy Cameron had a lot of it. He did fumble it quite a bit. 23 touches and 2 goals though, so good game. I feel like Geelong were probably a little bit too handball happy. They handball a lot more than they usually do. I'm not sure if that was game style or if it's just the way the game kind of played out. Bombers plus 64 disposals, so they just controlled the ball most of the day. Cats did get a lot of inside 50s, plus 11 in inside 50s, which was just from the turnover game. 100% they dominated the turnover game, Geelong. Obviously they lost clearances, but they just positioned themselves really well, but they just could not capitalise on the scoreboard. They'd get the ball inside their 50 and waste it. They had an extra couple scoring shots than the Bombers, who kicked really straight, and Geelong were slightly above 50%, but Geelong had 23 scoring shots or scores to 19 from the Bombers, so they certainly had their chances still at goal, but they wasted a lot of inside 50s as well, just by missing targets, and that's basically where they're at. Both teams, I think, would be pretty happy with this game. I don't think either of them would be fully stoked. I think Bombers got out of it what they wanted to. Looks like they're going to bring a more pressurised game. Like, they tackled pretty well last season, in all honesty. They were one of the best tackling teams. But maybe taking that to a new level this year, so maybe look for that. Obviously, they kicked really straight, which is good. They tried a few new things. Obviously, Archie Perkins in the forward line, Nick Martin in the forward line. The Kako and Caddy combination. So they've got a lot of positives from this pre-season. Are we convinced about the Dons yet? No. Well, I'm not, at least. I'm not saying they can't play finals and win a final. I'm just not convinced yet. But we'll see how they go in less than a week. this weekend. They are up on Saturday. I think they play against Gold Coast. So we'll find out a lot about them there. Geelong, look, there was some definite positive signs. Their turnover game was really good. They didn't turn it over too much, but they also forced a lot of turnovers from the Bombers. So that's a positive sign for them. They got some good game time into some key players. So there's definitely positives. They wouldn't be too concerned about losing by 21 points here. It is what it is. They should be good to go, I reckon. Hopefully got rid of some more cobwebs, and we'll see a different Geelong come this weekend. They've got Brisbane in opening round in potentially wet conditions if that game goes ahead, because it's meant to be a massive storm. So we'll see how that plays out. But Geelong, certainly looking wasn't the best hit out, but certainly nothing to be concerned about there. Move on to game number 2 from the weekend, and it was the Bulldogs and... No, it wasn't the Bulldogs, sorry, it was Richmond and Collingwood. This is an interesting one. Richmond 6 goals, 13-49. Played Collingwood 21-6, 132. So straight kicking again. Obviously, these two teams were in different leagues. They're in different time frames. One is trying to gear up to make a charge back up the ladder. The other one is in full rebuild mode. But 19 scoring shots to 27 isn't too much difference between the two teams, in all honesty. Certainly not suggesting an 83-point margin, but poor kicking from the Tigers and some really accurate kicking for the first 3 quarters by Collingwood. So Tigers were competitive. There was a few times, though, where they just lost control of the match, certainly through the second and early in the third quarters, where Collingwood's ball movement, Richmond just couldn't stop them. Collingwood would take the corridor and just control the game, and the Tigers could do nothing about it. Some of the stats, though, look good for the Tigers. They were +3 in clearances. They only had 2 less inside 50s than Collingwood. So those are pretty good numbers for such a young team. We'll have a look at some of the best players here. For Collingwood, Nick Dacos was the standout. He played the first 3 quarters. He didn't play at all in the last quarter. So he had 75-minute game time and had 32 touches, 8 tackles, 4 goal assists, 11 score involvements, and 5 centre clearances in what was a massive game. Lipinski went to the wing. He had 37 touches. Josh Dacos has moved to the back flank from the wing for this pre-season, so a bit of a role change there for him, and potentially looks like a really lethal combination of him and Houston coming off those half-back flanks. He had 27 and a goal for Josh Dacos. Houston also kicked a goal, had 22 touches, I think. Perryman played as an inside mid. He had laid 10 tackles, so he looks more like that defensive mid that maybe they've been looking for, especially with Tom Mitchell being injured all of last year and starting this season again injured. So kind of filling that role that maybe they were missing last year. The forward line of Collingwood looked dangerous here. It's kind of been another struggle for them over the last 12 months. But they had the 3 tools. Myercheck, Membry and McStay all played basically the whole game each. And Myercheck and Membry kicked 4 goals each. McStay kicked a couple, so some good returns there. Chuck in Bobby Hill kicking 4. He's had a great pre-season. He kicked 4 in the Indigenous All-Stars game and then kicks 4 in this one. So he's ready to go. If he can average anywhere over 1.5 goals a game this season, that would be huge for them. As would keeping Myercheck, Membry and McStay all healthy. For the Tigers, their senior players were pretty good. Not too much to say about their younger crew, but Nank, McIntosh, Hopper, Short and Jaden Ross, all really good games from them. Taranto and Vlosten were a little quiet, in all honesty, but I wouldn't be too concerned about them. They're both senior players that know what they're doing. So I'd expect to see them ready to go when round 1 hits. Obviously, Richmond won't be playing opening round. Conclusion from this game, I mean, it's going to be a long season for Richmond. There's no doubt about it. I don't think you can draw too much from this result. Maybe not even the stat lines. It's more just looking at how both teams were playing the game. Collingwood certainly were all out attack with their ball movement. So it'll be interesting to see if that's how they play this year. They certainly were taking the high risk, high reward strategy. So that one will be interesting. They obviously play their first game against GWS on Sunday this weekend. So they're trying to be fit and ready to go for this weekend. So different areas of pre-season as well. Richmond have an extra week to prepare, whereas Collingwood are straight into it this weekend. So yeah, don't take too much from the result. Obviously, Nick Dacos, there was concerns about his injury earlier, only a few weeks back, but he's clearly fine. He's flying. A few different role changes, a few new faces for Collingwood, all positive signs from them, but I wouldn't read too much into the fact that they smoked Richmond in this. It doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. Next up, game number 3. This one's the Bulldogs against Hawthorn down in Launceston. I was at this game. It was an entertaining game. I quite enjoyed it. The big storyline is Bont. He's out for 6 weeks. He limped off. He didn't even limp off. He just kind of jogged off early in the first quarter, about 10 minutes in. And that was the end of him. And since then, it has been announced he's missing 6 weeks with that injury. So he won't be seen for a while, which is concerning for the Bulldogs, who are already having some injury issues. They're hoping Ed Richards will be back for round 1, but I'm not convinced yet on that one. Trelaw's obviously out for the first part of the season, probably for 4+ weeks. Waitman's out for 3 months. And there's at least one more, but I can't think of who it is. But it's not a great start to their season for the Doggies here. However, the result did go their way. So they kicked 11-11-77 to win by 11 points, 9-12-66 for the Hawthorn Football Club. Poor kicking again. Neither team were great in front of goals, but Hawthorn definitely the worst out of the two in front of goals. But the Bulldogs controlled the game, in all honesty. It felt like they should have probably won by more than they did. They had plus 21 inside 50s. They controlled the ball. They controlled the territory. So, yeah, good signs there for the Doggies. 2 weeks in a row, Hawthorn have been really good at clearances. They won the clearance game quite comfortably here. They did the same to Geelong last week in the match sim game. So their midfield's looking really good for round 1. No, for opening round, sorry. They do have Sydney in opening round. It was a really high mark game for both teams. A lot of uncontested marks for both teams. Hawthorn did bring quite a good amount of pressure without being outstanding. Best players in this one, Libba for Bulldogs was really good. He had an outstanding game. There's going to be some pressure on him early season though. As I said, with the injuries that they've got in their midfield, no Treloar, no Bont, maybe no Richards. Libba's going to be that one senior player that is out there. He started well though. His pre-season's looking good. So him at his best would be huge for this Bulldogs outfit in trying to negotiate this first month or so of football, because it could be really bad for them. I think the obvious other one that's getting spoken about, no big news story here now because everybody's seen it, but Sam Davidson was huge. I think I did mention this either last week or the week before on the podcast about how well he's going. He's a mature age pick. He was like pick 51 in the draft last year. And he's going to get opportunities now with all these injuries. He had 29 touches and a goal, and he looked really good out there. Looked really comfortable, especially in that first half. Fraser had 27 disposals. He was good. Darcy and Norton kicked 3 goals each. So they're both looking good up in that forward line for the Doggies. Obviously, no Jamara Ugle-Hagan yet. Don't know what's going on with him, but the Darcy-Norton combination is working fine. For the Hawks, Sicily is looking like he is going to be in the back line mostly this year. Slightly different role for him. I mean, not completely different. He's always been someone that they like the ball in his hands. But that's certainly what they're going to be doing this time, and probably won't be needed to defend as much. He'll probably take like the fourth best opposition forward player. So all of a sudden, that will free him up quite a lot to attack a bit more, I think. So that could be really huge for them. And he's also, as he did a bit last year, he's that one that when they need a goal late in a game or late in a quarter, they will swing him forward. So watch out for that. Warple and D'Ambrosio were the other two good players for Hawthorn. There was no one terrible, but they didn't have a huge amount of good players across the field. It was just a consistent game. It wasn't... that's about it. Conclusions from this game. Hawthorn, they've obviously got a game to go up this week, up in Sydney. Huge game for them. Both teams have a big week ahead of them. Sydney with some injury concerns, which we'll get to shortly when we're talking about the Sydney game. But as far as Hawthorn go, I think it's a fine hit out for them. They'll be ready to go for round one, or opening round even. Bulldogs, they've got an extra week before they have to rock up to round one. So it's a really good hit out for them, except for the fact that they lose Bont. That's the big story from the game. And they are going to have to try and work out how to stop getting injuries, because it's certainly threatening to derail their season before it's even started. Move into the next game, which was straight after that one. This was Brisbane-Adelaide up in Brisbane. Ow. Brisbane kicked 13-16-94. Adelaide 14-13-97. This one looked dead and buried with about 10 minutes to go. Brisbane were up quite comfortably enough most of the day, really. And then Adelaide kicked the last 4 goals of the match to steal this one by 3 points. It was a good game. Neither team kicked incredibly straight. Obviously, Brisbane kicked a little bit worse, which, I mean, they lost by 3 points, so it really cost them. But at the end, it doesn't matter too much. Starkovic is out with concussion, so he is in protocols. Won't be playing opening round in this week. So that's a big news story for them. He is one of their better general defenders. So a bit of a loss there for them. Pretty evenish game, in all honesty. I think both teams pretty happy with the hit out. Most things went all right, other than the fact that Starkovic got injured. Neil and Zorko, they both continued where they finished last season. They're both absolutely flying, so look for big seasons from them. Levi Ashcroft, he was huge. He was the best Ashcroft out there, which is crazy. He had 23 touches and a goal. He was good. On the other side of the fence, Jordan Dawson, massive, 24 touches, 2 goals, 9 tackles. Had a little bit of a down year last year. Like, he was still incredibly good, but it wasn't as good as he had been the year before. If he's back to his best, it's really going to help Adelaide's chances this year, no doubt about it. He's also got plenty of support in that midfield. Soligo, we saw what he did in the match sim game a week ago. He was outstanding there. Chuck in the fact that Rankin is playing a lot of midfield time. Those three in there together are going to be pretty dangerous. Riley O'Brien as the ruckman as well is a really good tap ruckman. So potentially a really good season building for this Adelaide midfield and Adelaide team in general. My conclusion from this game, both teams pretty happy with it, in all honesty. Brisbane probably wanted to get the win, but at the same time, it wouldn't have mattered too much. Obviously, shutting down like that late in the game's not ideal, but they do have a game like a week after this game was on. So they played on Thursday night. They obviously play again this Thursday in the official first game of the season. So, they have a lot more on their minds directly from that, whereas Adelaide have that extra week before round one. So both teams looking good from it. I'm excited to see Adelaide and see if they have improved. Meanwhile, we know what to expect from Brisbane. They're premiership winning team last year, and I just don't see them getting worse. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's a wrap up on Brisbane Adelaide. Next up, we go to Friday games, and we start with an interesting one. It was GWS Carlton at Manuka Oval in Canberra, and GWS kind of got destroyed. It was 9 goals, 12-66, played Carlton 18-16, 124. This game was over pretty early. Carlton kicked 5 goals to none in the first quarter, I think it was, and just kind of kept on going from there. Ended up 58-point winners, which is quite a big thrashing. GWS played 2 games, obviously the match sim game against Sydney and then this one. And lost them by both by about 10 goals. So not the best pre-season on face value for the Giants. McGovern is the one concern for Carlton from this game. He went off with an ankle injury. I haven't heard whether it's serious or not, so we'll see how that plays out. But hopefully no concern for him and he'll be fine for their first game, which is round 1. The main story for GWS here was their struggles in the forward 50 especially. They had enough of the ball, in all honesty. Certainly in their forward line. They had an extra 2 inside 50s. But yet kicked 9 goals less than Carlton and also had 13 less scores than Carlton, but had more inside 50s. So that just kind of highlights the inefficiency of their forward line in this game. Forward efficiency is a key factor in football, and yeah, GWS certainly did not have that in this game against Carlton. I don't think it's something too concerning. But just something to look out for because, I mean, they have added Stringer to that forward line. He obviously wasn't playing in this one, so we'll see how that plays out. They think he's going to be right for round 1, or opening round, sorry. But, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. The Blues dominated stoppages, and they looked after the ball really well. They didn't turn it over much at all in this game, and that was a key factor for them just having complete control over this game. Lucas Camporelli, he was really good. He got a full game here and he had 20 touches, 500 metres gained, was really good. Mackay pretty much only played a quarter. He played about 23% of game time, kicked 2 goals in that, and then that was it. So 2 decent hit-outs from him in 2 weeks. Kemp kicked 3 goals for the Blues as well, which was good. Hogan kicked 3 goals for GWS, but overall, Carlton looked really good as a team. GWS, I don't know what to make of their pre-season. I don't think they're too concerned about the results, but at the same time, they looked outclassed at times in both of them. They certainly need to work on their forward efficiency in their forward line. They are gearing up for a game in opening round against Collingwood on Sunday this week. So they're pretty much ready to go now. That's the last we'll see them. Carlton, they obviously don't play opening round this year, so they've got an extra week, but that's a really good hit out for them. And now they probably have another little internal hit out this weekend, no doubt, and then they will be ready to go for round 1 on Thursday week against the Tigers, which, from what we've seen of the Tigers, should be a good start for the Blues season. We had a second game on Friday, and it was Gold Coast Sydney. This was up on the Gold Coast, and poor kicking once again. Gold Coast 8-15-63, played Sydney 12-12-84. Sydney win it by 21 points. They kind of controlled this game most of the way through it. They didn't really look like losing it at any point, even though Gold Coast did kick poorly, so they should have probably been a little bit closer. When I say they controlled it, they controlled the scoreboard of it most of the way through. Big news here, bad news for Sydney fans and AFL fans in general. Goulden has done an ankle. He's time frame not sure on how long he's out for, but he's out for a while. I believe I'm recording this on Sunday. He went in for surgery today on that ankle. So you can rule him out for a few weeks at least, I would imagine. Who knows, maybe even longer. It could be half the season. Who knows? I'm not an ankle expert, so I'm sure we'll get a time frame from Sydney in the next week or so. But hopefully the surgery goes fine. He'll be right on the recovery road soon, and but bad news for him and bad news for AFL fans, because he is one of the most exciting players. And if you haven't seen it, I did do a season prediction episode last week, and he was one of my picks for the Brownlow. And the concerning thing is I put in 3 picks for that Brownlow, and 2 of them got injured on the weekend, Bont and Gordon, which suggests not good news for Nick Dacos. But fingers crossed that doesn't eventuate. Mac Andrew also played about 5 seconds of this game. Literally hit his head in the first 10 seconds, went off. I think he passed concussion protocols, but that's a monitor. Whether he'll be right to play this weekend or not, I'm not sure. They play Essendon on Saturday, so I haven't heard anything more on that, but that'll be interesting. Storyline of the Suns was their forward line struggles, no doubt about it. Their team's changed a little bit from last year. Obviously, the extra talent in that half-back flank has allowed other players to move into the midfield, but their forward line just didn't really click. They had 63 inside 50s and only managed 8 goals. Yes, they did kick 15 behinds, but only 8 goals from 63 inside 50s is not really what you want. Their best couple players, Anderson was good, 35 touches a goal. Joel Jeffrey, 28 touches. And Sam Clohisi, he could be in for a big season. I have some high hopes for him. I've been pretty bullish about him all since he started, really, and he looked good in this one. He had 21 and 2. That's 2 goals. So good game from him. For Sydney, the McCartan experiment up forward seemed to work in this one. Obviously didn't do much in their their scratch match against GWS last week, where he only kicked a goal late in the last quarter. Up until that point, didn't do much. But this one, he was really good. He kicked 4 goals. I think he had about 13 touches. Definite pass mark for him there. So him and Amadi look like the 2 key forwards for Sydney this year, or at least to start with. So they've both had a good game so far. I think Amadi kicked 2 in this one as well. So he had a pass mark as well. If that forward line can start getting goals like that, they only need 4 or 5 from their bigs up forward. And with the midfielders getting forward and kicking goals, they will be right in the hunt again. Roberts, Jordan and McInerney were their main midfielders in this. Once Gordon went down, no Heaney. So it's no Chad Warner either, sorry. They all had great hit-outs in their pre-season scratch match against GWS. So this was like their B tier midfield, and they really did well. They all racked up good numbers. So look for them all to play a big role, especially now that Gordon's out. They're going to have to find someone to cover that role, which typically had been the wing role, but he's definitely threw out late last year, and what we'd seen so far this year, I think we were going to see a lot more inside mid from Gordon anyway. But we'll see how that plays out, I guess. Wrap up of this game. Both teams playing in opening round. Obviously both hosting a game. Sydney will be pretty happy with this, except for the Gordon injury. That's obviously the sour note. But they got some good game time into some important players. McCartan looked good. And obviously their big midfielders, Warner, Heaney, the week before looked outstanding. So and looked well and truly ready to go. So no concerns on that side of things, other than the Gordon injury. Gold Coast, they got the Bombers on Saturday night, and they're going to get ready for a tough game. The Dons look ready to go. Gold Coast need to find out what's going on in that forward line because it just did not work on the weekend. So that's their main area of concern, I think, is just their efficiency up forward. But a big game coming up against the Dons. We move into the Saturday games. There was 2 of them. First up, St Kilda, Port Adelaide. St Kilda 7-7-49. Port Adelaide 14-9-93. The Power won it by 44 points. They looked really good. Meanwhile, St Kilda did not look that great at all. Mitch Owens, shoulder injury. I don't know the extent of it, how long he's looking at sidelines, whether he'll be right for round 1 or not. But that's just the story there. This was a less exciting game than most of the others. It's a classic St Kilda game, in all honesty. Port Adelaide just dominated the uncontested football all the way through this. They had an extra 173 disposals and they had 140 marks in this one. Most teams averaged less than 100 marks a game, and Port Adelaide had just gone and whipped out 140 in a pre-season game. I don't know if this is on them or it's on St Kilda and the way St Kilda play football. Maybe a bit of both, but yeah, it is what it is. It wasn't the most entertaining match. Because they had so many touches and so much uncontested football, Port Adelaide did have a lot of players with some high disposal numbers in this one. Finlayson, the most notable one, he had 29 touches, pretty much all of them uncontested, and like 14 marks as well, which pretty much were all uncontested and just floated around getting touches. Rose, 39 touches, a goal, 8 clearances and 7 tackles. So, I mean, he's a bit different than the Finlayson role in this one. Horn Francis, 31 disposals, he was solid. Just big numbers across the board for Port Adelaide. A positive for them, though, was Sam Powell-Pepper. His return from injury, he kicked a couple goals, looked solid enough. Lukosius, at his new club, he looked all right as well. I think he kicked a couple goals, had 20-odd touches. So, good signs for him. For St Kilda, the one good thing, I guess, was McRae looked really good. He was the shining light. He's fit in really well at St Kilda. He's going to have a big season. Yeah, I don't know what St Kilda take out of this, to be honest. I don't know what we take out of Port Adelaide's game either. They're not going to be able to play that much uncontested football too often, I wouldn't think. I don't think teams will let them just do that. Could be completely wrong, but it's probably not the wisest thing just to let them run around and chip it around all day, because they will tear you apart. They've got some good players up forward. St Kilda wasn't a great showing, but at the end of the day, results in pre-season don't matter too much. West Coast, North Melbourne. This was Saturday evening, Saturday night. Over in the West, it was a close one. West Coast 11-5-71. Won it by 2 points, 9-15-69 for the Kangaroos. So once again, poor, inaccurate kicking for the losing team. Pretty much all the way through this one, the Roos controlled the match. Both the ball and the territory, Kangaroos just controlled this one. The thing was, they wasted their chances though. They had 24 scores to 16 and they lost by 2 points. It's pretty much the way it is. They looked good, North Melbourne, everywhere except for in front of goals. They looked really good. They had only 45 turnovers for the match, which is really, really good. They looked after the football. They got the ball moving reasonably well. I won't say great, but they certainly controlled the ball and controlled the ground. This could have been a lot different story if they had have kicked straight. Tim Kelly looked good, 22 touches, a goal. Liam Baker, first game with the Eagles, he looked fit and ready to go. Waterman kicked 4 goals for the Eagles, so he's ready for a big season. Obviously, wasn't too far off the Coleman last year. For the Kangaroos, Shees will look great. He's going to have a massive season. 36 touches and a goal for him. Zeri was huge in the ruck. Caleb Daniel, his new club, looked good. Jack Darling, if he had a kick straight, would have had a good day. I think he kicked 1 goal 3. So he looked good at his new club against his old club in this one. So that was good. Both sides positives from it. I think North Melbourne looked outstanding, except for their ability to kick a goal. So I certainly would be more confident in what I saw from North Melbourne than what I saw from West Coast in this. But also West Coast, I don't think, even though they basically had their best team out there, it's like Harley Reid wasn't at full pace. And yeah, so I think overall North Melbourne the happier of these two teams, even though they lost it. Yeah, so if I was to predict who's going to finish higher on the ladder this year based on this, I would definitely be saying North Melbourne. We move into the final game, which is the one I just finished watching before starting this episode. It was Fremantle-Melbourne over in WA in Mandurah. Fremantle 16-13, 109 to Melbourne's 11-24. Yes, you heard that right. 24 behind 90. Fremantle won it by 19 points. It was some poor kicking from Melbourne cost them here. With about 5 or 6 minutes to go, both teams actually had the exact same amount of scores. 16-13 for Fremantle, and I think it was 11-18 for Melbourne. And then Melbourne kicked 6 behinds late. I mean, they were already kicking poorly, but it got worse in that last few minutes. In all honesty, Melbourne probably should have been a lot closer. Fremantle kicked away late in the second quarter, which put a bit of a gap on them, but Melbourne kind of stuck around the rest of the way. Wasted opportunities. Another team that just didn't look good in front of goals, but elsewhere on the field looked pretty good. Overall, Melbourne had an extra 18 inside 50s and an extra 18 clearances, which against Fremantle is huge. Fremantle last year were the best clearance team in the competition by far. So for Melbourne to go plus 18 is huge in that area. Controlled the game. In all honesty, they look pretty good. Talking on players here, Sho Bolton was good in the first half. He kicked a couple. Looked pretty good in his first hit out with the Dockers. Walters kicked 3 goals. He didn't have a great season last year, so that's a positive sign for him and for Fremantle. Overall, they were fine, Fremantle. They didn't have anyone that was outstanding. Their game plan was, I don't know too much to read about it because they've had an interesting pre-season, and obviously their scratch match was the Indigenous All-Stars game, which I don't think you can read too much into, but overall, very interesting pre-season from them. Melbourne's side of things, though, some really positive news here. Clary was massive, 28 touches, 3 goals, 11 clearances, and Track, 33 disposals, 9 clearances. So those two combined for 20 clearances, 61 touches and 3 goals between those two. That is a huge hit out for both of them. Maxi Gawn was huge as well. He had a goal and 18 touches, dominated the ruck all day long. Real positive signs for Melbourne. They look good. A lot more confident in them than I was a few days ago. I know it's pre-season. Don't read too much into it. But it was the team that I thought that I was most concerned with that didn't finish in the 8 that I don't have finishing in the 8 this year. Because I think they're still good enough. And my main concerns were, is Track fully recovered from last year's serious injury? Absolutely he is. You tick that box. And is Clary back to his best? Absolutely he is. That was outstanding from him. He looks fit. He looks ready to go. So he could be back to his best, which for the rest of the competition is very, very concerning. Conclusion from this game, Fremantle won it, but I don't think they'd be stoked with the result, to be honest. There were some good signs, but also some bad signs as well, in all honesty. Sarong, I don't think he's going. I mean, he only played 59% of game time, had 20 touches and a goal, so that's pretty solid for the amount of game time that he played. Their forward line looked okay. Tracy kicked 2. As I said, Walters, Shy Bolton looked good. So there's some positive signs for them, sure, but it wasn't the perfect hit out, I don't think, going into. I know they've got a week until round 1, but Melbourne, all positive, I think. Really good hit out for them, except for the fact that they kicked poorly in front of goal. Some of the bad ones: Jack Billings 0-3, Salem 0-2, Petrarca 0-2, Langdon 0-2. So there are some of the bad ones in front of goal in this one. In the end, that's a wrap on pre-season. What do we make of it all? As I started this episode with, you don't want to read too much into the results. It's more about the game style and how important people play. Seeing big games from people that perhaps had down years last year or returning from injury is huge. There was a couple of them. A couple players went down, a couple big names. 2 of my top 11 players heading into 2025 went down this week in Bont and Errol Goulden. Crazy bad news for them, but that's football. They will both return, and when they do, they will make their teams better. That's pretty much a wrap on this episode of the preseason wrap-up. Don't forget to jump in the comments. Let me know how your team went. Do you agree with what I said about them or not? Also, episode 11 will be coming out on Thursday morning, as it will every week this year. There will be an episode every Thursday morning at about 6 a.m. It will go live, maybe 5 a.m. on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It will be a full preview of that weekend's football. There's only 4 games in opening round, so we'll be looking at all 4 of those. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, come back and watch that one. It's going to be a good one. I thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out all my socials. I'll be back on Thursday, as I said. Check out all my YouTube videos. There's tons there. Appreciate you all for sticking it out. 2025 season is almost here. Get excited. Catch us on the next one.